Welcome to 10,000 Steps with Baby. I'm really excited today because we have my really good friend, Alexandra Feeley, joining us today because she is mum to two amazing little girls called Holly and Frankie. And I wanted to get her on here so that she can talk about something I'm completely unable to speak about, and that's having twins. So thank you so much, Ali, for coming on. Do you want to introduce yourself
Yeah,
or
thanks for having me.
yeah, no, glad you could be here.
Well, I'm Allie. I am 34 years old. I have two girls, Holly and Frankie, who are 3.5, 4 in July. And yeah, just so that everyone can place my accent, because this is kind of a weird thing that I always come up with, is that I'm originally from New York and I moved to Manchester, lived in the UK for about almost 9 years. So yeah, it is really weird bringing kids up in the UK when I grew up in another country and navigating like all of that on top of the first time mom, twin mom, etc.
And the way that me and Ali know each other is that we met doing NCT classes, which, if you're not in the UK, is the National Childbirth Trust classes. And it's essentially you get taught how to change a nappy and how to bath a baby, but mostly people just use it to make mum friends. And that's actually what happened here. So that's really nice. But that's how we got to know each other. And now our kids hang out all the time, don't they? And they're growing up together. So that's really lovely. But I wanted to ask at the start was just initially how you found out you were having twins. Did you have any suspicions before you found out? And what was the story behind all that?
Yeah, I feel like it's a wild story because me and my partner James, completely not expecting to have a child, let alone two. And it was not something that ever crossed my mind, but I was convinced that like we weren't trying. There's no chance I'm pregnant. That doesn't actually happen. Like it just to me was just so foreign. And James and I went to Mamas and Papas to kind of like try on the feeling of what being a parent would be
Oh,
like.
that's so
And
cute.
we went in there and looked at prams, and honestly, we looked at all of them, and then we looked at a double and we went, ha, 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 we would never need that. And like to this day, we still joke about that because it comes back to haunt us of like, do you remember when we were in here and we were laughing and we thought that was hysterical? And then it happened.
Mm-hmm.
And even so the first scan I had was really early. I think I was 6.5 weeks because they had miscalculated things and they thought I was like 13 weeks. So that first scan I went in, I couldn't see the screen, but James could see the screen.
Okay.
So he's kind of looking at the scan and I'm not, I'm faced away. And the stenographer's also obviously looking at the screen. And I just see James' kind of face is all worried and nervous. And if I'm being really honest, I was so like flabbergasted by the pregnancy that I thought I was going to go in there and they were going to say something horrible like you have ovarian cancer, you have something else. And I have no medical background. So my mind was playing with like, well, what could have caused pregnancy? But was it like it's something like tragic because I just was so foreign. And anyway, the stenographer looked at me and did an internal scan because it was so early, and I saw James's face a little nervous, and then she went out of the room and said, I just need a second opinion. And I was like, oh my God, like now I'm really nervous. And I mean, when people aren't sure, they would rather get a second opinion than worry someone. So it's not always bad news when they say, I just want to get my colleague. In this case, it wasn't bad news at all, but it was clearly like two sacks, two black blobs. I don't know if that's a baby or an embryo at that stage, but two little black blobs, and then one heartbeat. And then it was, they got the second opinion because they could like faintly, very faintly see a second heartbeat. And they didn't want to convey you're having twins, like as if I had already had like a loss, or maybe it was just way too early to know. So in that whole thing, it was like the most panicky I've ever been. And then when they said you're having twins, I was going in thinking something tragic has happened to me, or something like I have a cyst or I have a tumor. Like, I don't know, just
Yeah.
all these crazy things. And it was two babies. And then, like, as if watching a movie, when everything goes spinning in black and you just are like, actually, I never would have ever thought that. And while it was this moment of like, kind of, oh crap, the they were all really happy for us, right? Like all of the staff in the hospital, it was like, this is amazing. So it
Mhm.
kind of made me calmer because they were like, this is so amazing. And I was like, oh, right, this can be amazing. It sounds really nuts and hard and holy moly. But like, so then it was this immediate shift of, okay, we need to put you on another path or another like treatment path, probably not the right word, but you know, like you have a track when you have a single baby, you have a different track when you have a multiple pregnancy. And they were able to switch gears with that faster than James and I could comprehend what happened.
Yeah.
So they printed the scan and then swept us into another room, and they were like, we're going to get a midwife in here who can counsel you through what the next steps are. And
Okay.
that Down syndrome testing is slightly different. And only being 4 years ago, I don't even remember what all the technicalities were, but you go on this different path. And I remember sitting in this tiny room in the hospital with the midwife, and she was saying all of these words, and I don't remember what she was saying. And it was talking about how to test for chromosomal deficiencies and things. And I was just like, I'm having two babies. Like, I don't hear you.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like quite the right
Um,
time to be giving you like a whole bunch of technical information when you've just had like the biggest news of your life.
we're so like telling our families about the pregnancy and telling people in general. We were like, we want to tell people in person. And I think I'm pretty sure this memory is correct. In the waiting room, I just shot our family group chat a text that was like, we're having twins, not a joke. And then just like put my phone away. So everyone was like, you know, James, my partner, is a huge comedian on the family chat. They expect crazy things from him all the time. And I think they were all a bit like, no.
Yeah.
But then neither of us replied because we were going through this, you know, medical process. But yeah, it was like a roller coaster. And obviously the staff being so kind and so warm and like celebratory helped. And I don't think it was until we walked out of the hospital, walked into the car, driving home, digesting that information, where I think I turned to James and went, or actually it might have been days later,
Yeah.
but I remember turning to James and going, if anyone can handle this, it's me. Like, and that's not me saying, like, I've never been a mom before. Having your own kids is completely different than having siblings or being the one that likes babies, let's say. But I just thought, this is the only way I'm going to think about this to be able to get over this hump of how am I ever going to do this? It was saying, well, if anybody can do this, it's me. That's why I've been given this, for lack of a better, well, blessing. It is a blessing, but
Yeah.
like I had to kind of train myself to think that way in the moment, because we were just laughing at the double prem like
Yeah.
3 days before, thinking, haha, that would suck. And then it was us. And it has never sucked. There's been hard days, but in that moment, it was just like, I can do this. And that was something I had to keep telling myself. I mean, I tell myself that now when, you know, things go crazy. So, and just keep going down that path. And if anybody is in that scenario of finding out they're pregnant with twins or 3 or 4, just think you've been given a challenge that hopefully it is because someone knows that you can handle this, or there's some fate there that's like, well, they will be okay. And that's how I thought about it.
To be fair, knowing you and seeing you as a mum, I think you are one of the few people that could probably handle it. I think you make it look quite easy having twins.
We run our house like not militant, but like an operation.
Yeah, a military operation. Yeah, you know, you got to be organized and you got to be on it. And just quickly, how did James, your partner, how did he take it? Was he?
We weren't living together yet at the time, and he had left that morning, and I then took a pregnancy test, called my mom, freaked out all day, and it was like, can I see you after work? And we took the dog for a walk, and I remember just kind of telling him on the walk, and he was like, oh, but I had all day to process this. Now that was just the pregnancy, so we had that kind of like surprise, and then surprise it was twins. And James has this way of, he's a goof, he's like an entertainer, he is like the funny guy, but when there is I'm not going to use the term crisis, but when there's like, okay, this is the time that we need to be serious and we need to like flip the switch into what's next mode, and how do we get past this, or what do we need to do, he does that, and he does that way faster than so many people in the world. And he switched right into that as going, okay, well, if we're going to have twins, that means money is different, that means capacity in life is different, that means we've got to learn how to do double. Like, he was just he had this like pragmatic approach, but with the right level of anxiety.
Yeah.
Almost like
You don't want them to be
appropriate
chilled. You
anxiety.
want them to be a little bit like,
Yeah, well, and like I definitely wasn't chilled, but because he was so, again, like tactical about it, it was like, okay, well, this is what we're gonna do, and that
yeah,
helped me get back into that mode of like, oh yeah, we can do this. Even if you that roller coaster ride it out all through pregnancy of, can we do this? I don't know. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. No, no, we can't. Yes, we can.
And what was being pregnant with twins like?
I know every pregnancy is different, and I've only ever had one pregnancy. So, with that in mind, I kind of pinned myself as somebody who probably doesn't handle pregnancy well in general. But I know that early stages of pregnancy were extremely hard for me. Like, and as a first time mom, you don't know what to expect. So you get these symptoms and you think, oh my God, what is that pregnancy? Is that something else? Like, why am I feeling this way? And then the doctors told me that with twins, it's double the hormones. And that's why your body just like feels things. So like back pain in the first trimester was so tough. I went to America for work meetings when I was like 11 or 12 weeks pregnant. And I was sitting in a boardroom for 8 hours a day. And I remember being like, I have to get up. I cannot sit
Yeah.
down. I cannot sit down. And I'm like pacing the room. And my boss at the time was like, yeah, good energy, Allie. And I was like, you just don't know I'm pregnant yet. And I can't sit down.
Yeah. That's the worst bit when you
But
feel
it was
awful
like,
and you can't tell anyone and you don't get any
yeah,
sympathy.
yeah. And with like nausea and sickness, wasn't, I wasn't actually ever sick, but I would feel like that all the time. And there was that thing of like, well, if you eat, it'll help you not feel sick. And I just was like, that doesn't make sense. And
Mm.
those things were hard in early pregnancy. Towards the end, it was, I don't think I was that much in pain, and I never had any labor pains or signs of anything early, even though we kind of approached the whole pregnancy with the paranoia of you can go much earlier with twins, or it's high risk automatically, so you're kind of treated with any little thing, you're treated with extra care and extra attention, and that gives you a little bit of extra anxiety around everything. So it was at the end, I mean, I had a few complications of pregnancy, but nothing tough. It just was really big. Like, even I worked up until 6 days before my scheduled C-section. And at the end, I was like laying in bed and every 10 minutes, like flipping myself like a whale because I just couldn't sit in a chair. I couldn't do it.
I mean, most singleton pregnancy people don't work up until 6 days before they're. So that's impressive that you did it with twins.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Advice wise, I think it is just the same as any pregnancy. Like, listen to your body, do what you can. I tried to stay active until I was about 6 or 7 months. I was still lifting weights.
wow.
There got to a certain point where I needed a nap. If I went to the gym in the morning, I could not last till 6 p.m. working. So it just was not for me. But I know other people who have worked out till the end. And maybe this isn't so much advice, but I think something I learned a lot about with twins that was specific to twins was um, 38 weeks. At least the advice I was given was 38 weeks isn't as scary as it might be for a single baby, because most of the time the strain on your body past 38 weeks is harder for you than and outweighs the benefit. Like, the benefit to the baby staying in isn't outweighed by the harm it does to you.
Yeah.
And again, I can't remember who, if that was a doctor, if that was something I read, so no quotes here. But I think it was the fear of premature baby, but then realizing, okay, they'll be okay if we get to 38 weeks.
Yeah.
Having that scheduled C-section, handling the things like steroid injections for their lungs that they offer you. And a lot of it, the doctors are like, well, it's up to you. I was like, well, I'm not a doctor. I
Yeah.
don't know.
I guess it's difficult as well because I'm imagining that maybe a lot of the advice, the programs, and like I listened to like quite a lot of like podcasts about being pregnant, but it was all for single babies. It wasn't aimed at twins. So I'm guessing maybe you didn't have as much information out there that you could easily go and look at.
Yeah, and I mean, I read, again, being American, the book that you read is What to Expect When You're Expecting.
Oh yeah.
And that is like very American, as in like how to choose your doctor and how to do and I kind of just skipped those parts because living in England, I didn't need to choose a doctor. And then I read a twin specific one, which I'd be happy to like recommend and give you the title. I don't remember what it was, but it gave a lot more of the practical, like what to do with the baby, not really like pregnancy stuff that I found helpful. Like one example was, and I've told you this before, is the stations. So when they were like 3 months old, I would set up like 4 stations in my living room on the floor. One was a tummy time llama with a mirror. The other one was the play gym. The other one is just like, I don't know, whatever little toys that we had, the black and white books or something. And it was like every 10 minutes, just swap them a station. And then it means that you can answer emails for 10 minutes at a time. And it doesn't give you like much, but it gives you more than what you had if you didn't do it.
Yeah. Instead of just
So
trying to
it
like
means like
hold
a hot
to.
cup of coffee. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that came from that book. And some advice that I didn't take came from that book. And looking back, I think, oh man, I wish I did that. The other thing I'll say is the NCT class. Like the reason I went to a single baby NCT class and not a multiple baby one, they do have that. And it's virtual. So I just thought, for me, I needed the support and the friends, and I'm really happy I did. I mean, look, we're friends now, and we've got other friends from the group that we still talk to a lot. And I really benefited more from seeing people in the new neighborhood that I was moving to, like thinking about all the varied careers and backgrounds and different ways that people came to become mothers in that group. Like it meant that you had an actual network. And my friend who had twins 2 years before me, she did the virtual class, and this was like deep COVID. But she said that there wasn't enough twin specific stuff that she would recommend that over the normal one if it means you can get a network out of it and like make those connections. So I was really happy with it. And I think our NCT teacher did a good job of trying to break in the little twin nuances of what would natural birth be like, what would the reality of juggling, carrying 2 babies, things like that. I think she did a good job of that.
I mean, I don't know how you feel about this, but I wonder if sometimes it gets old being like, it's twin, oh, you're having twin, I mean, I'm guessing you just hear that constantly, and it probably eventually just going to be like, okay, yes, it's twins.
Yeah. And like, since I've moved to England, I've been pinned as like, especially like living in Northwest Manchester, where, we're not in like London. Oh, you're American, like is like the first thing people say to me. And then it was like, now as a mom, it's, oh, you're the twins mom. And I'm like, yes. Like, but I don't call my girls the twins. So when other people do, it doesn't throw me off anymore, but it used to. Because to me, they're the girls, like they are two totally different kids. They're not identical. They have totally different personalities. We don't dress them the same. And, there's ups and downs to how you parent twins, and there's so many different variances that everyone does. I don't think anyone's right or wrong, but to me they're just sisters. I like, obviously don't forget that they're twins, but I just don't think of them as a pair.
It's not their whole personality, is it? Like it's just, in fact, it's almost no part of the personality. It's just something about them. So yeah, but I think people like to focus in on that. I think you told me before, you get loads of comments and people kind of assuming they're like the same person.
Yeah, but like I feel like it's a generational thing where some, and I'll say older women, because I think women definitely feel more comfortable being a little bit more intrusive, or I don't know if that's the right word, but they, like willing to ask more questions of each other. And I noticed that when someone's a bit older, they'll have no problem being like, oh, which one's older? And I think they're a minute apart. What difference does it make who's old? Like, it's not like, oh, Francesca's the old wise one. So those kind of questions, and also like which one is the tomboy one and which one's the girly one. And both of my girls are unicorns, mermaids, pink, princess. Like but I like, they're also allowed to play football, and if one of them liked football, one of them liked dance. But I think that's something where maybe it's an old stereotype or an old wives' tale or whatever that I have gotten asked quite a few times.
Yeah. And I mean, is that annoying, or do you just kind of brush it off?
I think it's as annoying as getting like, oh, you have your hands full.
Yeah.
And sometimes in the moment, and this is all moms, not just twins moms, but you never know what their day was like or their night was like. Like, your kids never sleep. Other kids have like days where they just kick off from the second they wake up to the second, you're get them to sleep. And sometimes you get the, wow, you must have your hands full thing, and you just want to go, ah,
yeah.
And that, I never really got caught off guard with that. But there was one point where I was in the park, and another mom went to her kids and went, like, pointed and went, look, they're twins. And it was like I was in a zoo. And I did lose it. Like, I was like, that's like so crappy. Like, and I called James and he's at work and I was just like, you'll never guess what happened. And he was like, yeah, it's all right though. But it was just my mood in the moment. And like, you just really never know what a mom's thinking or had to go through. And then to have a comment about their kids or the way they are or anything can just trigger you.
Yeah, I know, I get that. But that is a weird thing to say. Yeah.
Like point and look. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah,
Yeah.
we kind of touched about it just slightly before, but so that's wanted something I also wanted to ask you was you said about something about equipment and oh yeah, the double pram that you looked at and said, oh, we'd never need that. But anyone who's listening who's expecting twins or has got twins, any equipment that you would recommend? Because obviously that's something quite niche.
Yeah. Well, there's always the question of like, oh, well, then you need two of everything. And you definitely don't need two of everything. But I think having two bouncers in the beginning was really good for us. And people do things different ways, like they're feeding pillows that you could use in place of bouncers. But having two places that you know are safe, that you could put newborns down on,
Yeah.
was I definitely want everyone to know that I'm not giving any medical advice or saying anything. Everyone says don't let them sleep in the bouncers, but honestly, when they sleep in an hour here, 2 hours here in the early days, they did sleep in the bouncers a lot. And we used to put two of them in one bouncer when they were teeny, and then we separated them, and it just was really helpful to have that. Um, with also the not buying two of everything when they were getting bigger, and they're like that 6 months where they can sit in things or bounce in things. I got one of it's like a jumper where they go from the door frame.
Yes.
And they can jump in that. Yeah. And then I had one of those like toddler seat things with toys on it. We actually had two of those because they were height chairs, and that meant that we didn't have to have two huge height chairs in a pretty small dining room. But again, I kind of kept on that stations thing of, well, one's in this and one's in that, and then I swap them so that they're not getting too tired. They're not also in any one thing for too long. And you don't actually need two jumpers or two seats or two sets of something, because it takes up a lot of room, these swings and everything else. On like the advice side, I'll say my biggest regret is my buggy stroller pram situation. I had done a lot of research, and James and I are research people, like, okay, let's try to get the best thing. So I read that, well, if you get a pram that's side by side, you have a struggle getting into places. If you're just trying to pop in a small charity shop in a village, you might not be able to get in, or restaurants in New York City, for example, you'd never be able to get through with that. So I was like, oh, I've hacked it. I'm going to get the single lane one with one in the front, one in the back. This is going to be amazing. Got Silver Cross one. It was like the Mercedes of prams, and it was great. Kind of heavy, I'm not going to lie. But it was really hard to steer when they got bigger. So immediately when they hit a certain weight, and I can't really remember what this was now, but I had to switch to the side-by-side stroller that we had because it was just too heavy. Like pushing it up hills or pushing it anywhere, and then obviously putting all the pieces together and putting them in the car was hectic. So I wish I had gotten like the actually 4 twins, maybe slightly more expensive pram, because the ease of taking things in and out of the car and having one-handed functionality and things. But the biggest killer was you need to be able to steer it with one hand.
Yeah.
I'm a coffee drinker. Usually when the baby's asleep is the only time you can answer anyone back. But like, you can't steer a really heavy pram with 2 babies in it with one hand. Or if it has like, our stroller has like 2 handles on the side and no bar crossing, like, oh God, that was the biggest mistake. Because you can't push it with one hand.
And it's an expensive mistake too, because these prams cost a fortune, don't they? Like all prams do.
Yeah. Yeah. I bought mine secondhand because what happened was there was a Silver Cross tandem one. So buying secondhand meant I just bought 2 and then flip-flopped all the ingredients to make it a twin pram.
Yeah.
But then had 2 bases too, so we didn't actually have to take the one in and out of the car to go for walks around the neighborhood.
Oh, that's clever.
So yeah, it was good. I mean, I had to buy 2 secondhand, and I didn't get the right one in the end. But if you could get that logic right and the right equipment, then you'll have hacked the whole twin pram situation.
I remember when we would be walking up and down because Ali joined me on a lot of these walks trying to get the babies to sleep. It would be walking up and down endlessly these paths around where we both live. I have this memory that you used to get like quite worried and stressed out because the way that the single lane pram is, you couldn't see both of them at the same time. Like,
Yeah.
so
Oh,
one would
yeah.
be
I
either
forgot
facing
that
away
completely.
or one would be like under the other one, and you would have to kind of, and I
Yeah.
get that, like when they're very young, you want to kind of have eyes on them the whole time, don't you?
Yeah. When they had the cot beds, it was like stadium seating, and one would be really low and one would be high. And then when they transferred to the toddler seat, it was this dilemma of, do I have them both face me so I can see them? Do we face them out so they can see the world and benefit from the walk? Do we have one facing me, it was just like I never feel like I got it right. And then it, it was like not until it was just like walks for sleeping that you stopped caring, because you're like, well, the whole point is to get them to sleep. So
Yeah.
it's just like, how covered up can I make them so that they go to bed on this walk? Then like I also like did a lot of baby carrying too, which I think with twins it's a little bit daunting because you just think, how am I going to carry two babies? And again, did a bunch of research. And you went to that baby wearing library thing, didn't you, when James was little, where you get to try on all of the. Did you do that, or was that someone else? The
I think I
baby
meant
wearing
to, and then
library.
I didn't end up going.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I think I got given one and then I just kind of used that one, but it definitely
Yeah.
wasn't the best. I wish
Well,
I'd gone to that.
I wish I did too, because I would have liked to try both of them at the same time. I did it when they were super, super tiny. Like, there's a picture where they're 6 weeks old and I'm at a barbecue and I have them both in the swaddle wear, like the big cloth.
Yeah.
And you just see their like two little heads. That was fine because obviously they're really light and they're both just sleeping most of the time anyway. But when they got bigger, they have like these things where there's like one baby on each side of you. And then there's one where you have like one on the front and one on the back. And I think it was really intimidating because how do you do that? Get it on by yourself. And then how do you get the baby off by yourself? So if I have another adult with me, why not just give them the other baby
Yeah.
versus them trying to get me dressed and undressed with the kids? So
It's,
I
and then when
never
they
really did
kick
the
and their
double
little
wearing
legs are
thing.
going everywhere, like it's hard enough to get like one baby in. Like, and I have no idea how you would
Yeah.
get two.
Yeah. I mean, even to get them on your back, I would like basically put the baby in it and then put them on like a backpack and like, oh gosh, the little head going like, oh, as you're trying to get them on like a backpack. Because I used to do that to get them in and out of the car by myself. So when we would go to like head over heels, that baby, when they're like one,
Yeah.
and you're literally walking into a baby play place, you're not going to get the stroller and the pram out. You're just, ideally, you're just carrying the baby from the car into the place. But to carry two wiggly 1-year-olds, the risk of like dropping one because they're just wiggling, and then plus you've got the backpack. And so I used to put the carrier on my front, put one strapped in, and then carry the other one with just like free carry them like a
Yeah.
normal person. So at least I didn't have to worry about, well, if two are wiggling and crying or whatever, I can just focus on the one that's not strapped in.
Yeah.
That,
And
so
you
that
don't
was a
have to
good
worry about
like
one running off
learning.
across the car park while you're trying to get the other one out of the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Gosh, yeah. I think because I had to be, well, you don't have to be stricter or not as strict anything. Like there is a wing it and do it and survive mode with twins, and then there is like I want to be more regimented with twins to maybe control more. And I'm maybe a bit more. I feel more at ease when I have more control over things in life. But I think my girls right now are pretty good listeners. I'll say in public, because at home it's can be World War III some days, and other days it's great. But in public, they're really good listeners. Like they do hold my hand when we cross the road. They do stick by me. They do listen. And I think it's just because I've always had to be a little bit more, no, it's safety first. And no, I need you to listen, because there has only been one time that I can remember where Frankie just shot off in a field another direction, was laughing at me when I was like, come back, come back. And I had to hand Holly to one of my friends and just be like, I need to go run after her. And,
Yeah.
she's laughing and giggling. And I'm like, but normally they listen to me and they come back. And I just think that is because I've had to be, out of fear of something going wrong, stricter on the safety stuff with them.
100%. I mean, it's just a non-negotiable, isn't it? They have to, because you cannot run after both of them if they both dash
Yeah.
off. So yeah, I think that's a good benefit actually there, because I do definitely think, when we hang out together, yeah, they're definitely, I would say, the best listeners.
So it's not the case when it's just me. Like,
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I know, like, behind closed doors, like, in public, I don't know, like, whenever I complain to you, I was like, oh, James has been a wee hoarder. And you're like, James is always lovely when I see him. I'm like,
Yeah, he comes and sits on my knee and he's like, "Ali, I just didn't have any snacks this morning." I'm like, "Rachel, why haven't you been torturing?"
yeah. But he's
But
actually
I
eating
know.
14 different snacks
Yeah.
and throwing them all over the floor.
Yeah.
Um, Talking about food, that brings me nicely onto the next question because I wanted to ask you about feeding because I know you had quite a big feeding journey and I think you got lots of advice that you could give about that.
Yeah. Well, like, I'm going to stop qualifying all my things with this is not medical advice because I'm just going to say what I think is the right thing here now. Like,
But we
I'm
can
just,
say
I'm
that
trying not to give my opinion.
we can say a caveat now. This is not medical advice. Follow your doctor's advice
And
and
I've
midwives
only
advice.
had one set of twins and no other motherhood experience.
Yeah.
So, but I I was pretty set on breastfeeding because of, the obvious benefits of it and also like the connection factor and just like it was something special to me and important to me. And a lot of what I was reading advice wise before the babies came was, well, if they have a bottle, there's nipple confusion. And this like whole nipple confusion thing was so prominent and so scary to me that I had like expressed colostrum before they came. I brought it to the hospital with me. Then like day one, we're trying to feed and God, that's all of it is a huge blur. But I remember looking back at it now and going, they weren't even feeding; they were just like asleep on my
Yeah.
nipple. I didn't know what I was doing. Anyway, a lot of nurses, a lot of midwife attention with two. We had gotten moved to a private room the second night, and I was really thankful for that because there was just not physically enough room in the space they give you in the ward for two baby cots, you and a chair. Like there just isn't enough room. So uh moved into that second room, and after the second full day of having them, let's say, I was just in tears, like with the feeding stuff, because they were really sleepy and they kept saying, you have to keep waking them and you have to keep waking them. And I don't want to comment on the NHS because everyone was amazingly helpful. And like, I just feel like we didn't get enough attention where I felt like I had that breastfeeding specific support, even though they all meant well. There was a nurse, her name was Rachel, actually. I called her Night Rachel because there was a day Rachel and Night Rachel. Anyway, these people stand out in your mind because she changed motherhood for me in that moment. She said, listen to me, there are women who give birth who go on to breastfeed until the baby's 5 years old with no problems. But on day 2 and 3 and 4, they give them a bottle because your milk's not there, your hormones are nuts. Like, do something to make your life easier in this moment and don't get so hung up on like what tomorrow brings. And obviously you hear someone finally tell you what you need to hear, you just break down crying. You're like, okay, that sounds like it'll help me. And also feeding was like really like important for us specifically because Francesca had jaundice and was in that little tanning booth therapy. So it was like the more she feeds, the more she'll cleanse the jaundice, say, like get rid
Yeah.
of it. So it was this emphasis on like she must feed. She also needs to be in the light. I don't know if I'm feeding her properly. And that stress of am I doing the right thing? And that's all every mother is always thinking that in every day. Like, God, looking back, there were so many days and nights where I was trying to feed them and I was just like hysterically crying and like trying to figure it out. And anyway, James gave Francesca the first bottle and he also was like, I've never given a baby a bottle. I've never, let alone a brand new baby, doesn't know how to use it to feed. And it was just this moment that like changed us because we thought, okay, well now why don't I focus like if they're feeding every 2 hours or 2.5 hours, let me focus on one, try to feed them, and he can give the other one a bottle. And that way I'm not feeding one for 40 minutes and then going to feed another for 40 minutes or stressing myself over tandem feeding when they can't lift their head. And it's just tough. And that gave us a bit more freedom of, well, actually, for us, nipple confusion was not a thing. The girls were fine with both. And it did take a while to figure out which bottles they were fine with, that didn't like they weren't too fast or too easy for them. And, that whole thing that I think, again, every baby mom has that, figuring out what's right. And then like moving on to the tandem feeding, I was like trying to be efficient, trying to make sure I did the right thing for my kids, trying to like get the most amount of sleep and, do all the quote right things. So I was like, I have to do tandem feeding. I've got pillow, like I'm gonna do this. And now actually thinking back, we went through like, does Holly have tongue tie and that whole thing. And the tongue tie clinic helped with breastfeeding so much. They sat with
Mm.
me until like 6 p.m., helping me feed, letting James take pictures of the positions so that like we remembered what she taught us. And she just said, focus on one baby for now. You're putting too much pressure on yourself trying to do both. So again, it was advice that like changed my outlook. And then eventually, I think Holly didn't have tongue tie. That was like nothing, moved on. And I did start feeding them together. And it was like ditching the feeding pillow because they were too little for that. My boobs were too big for that. Like it was like trying to figure out what is the right position for you, not hunching over, not, and you breastfeed as well. So the whole not bringing your boob to the
Yeah.
baby, bring your baby to the boob, and then try to do that twice, though, it was like really tough. So it wound up always being like me in bed with pillows of some kind in whatever position, and then as they got bigger and stronger, it was a lot easier to feed them two at a time because I would sit on the floor. So definitely don't buy a rocking chair because the safest place for you with your baby is on the floor, because if they fall, they've got 2 inches to fall, not 2 feet to fall. So I sat on the floor a lot. Then I finally got used to the feeding pillow and the way I could sit on the floor, because when James went back to work, there was nobody there to hand me a baby. So it was like, get them both on the floor, pick up one, get them on, pick up the second one, get them on. And then you could just sit there and feed. And then it cut, double feeding out or the bottles down a bit. And I was just able to feed them. And like, it was so tough thinking back at it. There was so many days of frustrating and like so much crying for me because it's that struggle of like, I need to feed the baby who's now crying because they're hungry, and the only way to stop them crying is to get them to feed. But getting them to feed is so frustrating, the cycle of that. And God, it was a tough thing to break. And there was a few times where James just kind of came in and was like, I'm just gonna give them a bottle. You have not failed, but if you keep going, you're gonna work yourself up so much. And ultimately, the best thing is that the baby's fed. And the girls were, I mean, now they eat everything in sight and like no trouble with weight or anything, but they were basically like trending light, let's say, because I wouldn't use the term underweight. They weren't medically, there was no concerns, but I was hyper vigilant about like, are they eating enough? Are they feeding enough? Can we top up bottles at certain points because they were in a very low percentile? So it was, the most important thing was they got fed. It didn't really matter how. But I breastfed for almost 2 years, both of them. And through that, there was pumping, there was the haka thing,
Yes. The haka. Yeah.
there was like nipple shields. It was like I tried every single thing to try to figure out what worked. And I think ultimately it was them getting a bit older just helped me, because then they were able to move their head. They figured it out. And getting to that step, we just did whatever we could to get there, whether it was bottles, formula, express milk, like anything, because we just wanted to make sure that they were healthy. So it was less stressful to just do the easier thing, but still keep working on breastfeeding too, if that makes sense. Because what I will say is, breastfeeding twins made it that I didn't have to then go try to heat up or create 2 bottles
Yeah.
when they were crying. And I never did well with hearing them cry. Like even now, it's like nails on a chalkboard, and it is like that for every mom. But I'm so glad I could just like pop my shirt off, and that was the process. There wasn't like, oh my God, I've got to heat a bottle up and I've got to make a bottle and do that, because with two, I think I would have really struggled to keep up with washing and sterilizing
Sterilizing.
because, yeah. But I mean, they're good eaters now, so all the stress about their weight when they were little feels silly, even though back then it was something I thought about every single second of the day. And I tracked what they ate and pooped and whatever, slept for 3 months. Like, we have a notebook, 3 months of 2 columns, Holly, Frankie, and every feed and every nappy and every
Oh,
nap.
I know. It's so
And
funny when you
looking
look
back at
back
it,
on it now. You're like, oh, I was insane. But at the time, you were like,
yeah,
yeah.
oh, definitely. I don't think there's anything I've ever been as detail oriented about or like so obsessed with than it was my kids feeding. And I guess rightfully so, right? That is the only thing on your mind at that point. or at least I was privileged enough that I was able to focus on just that and just them. And I did treat it like a hobby or like a skill. Like I was like, the more I do, the better I'm going to be at this, and I need to keep getting better and keep getting better. Like it reminds me of like playing Sims as a kid when you'd have those skill bars, and it's like working to the top. So like, we got through it, you know. Like that's the best thing I could say is that even in the stressful moments, it wound up all being fine.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that like we had really similar. I don't know if that's just a universal experience or if it's maybe. I don't know because we both went to the NCT breastfeeding class, but I mean the woman who did that was really lovely. But my takeaway from that, and it sounds like yours is kind of similar, was there is a right way to breastfeed, and you have to get it perfectly right from the get go. Like you can't, like you said, I had it in my head that James had a bottle of milk, that would be it. We would never breastfeed again, you know. And
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I was very black or white, and you know, if you gave him a dummy before 6 weeks, he's going to get confused. If you
yeah.
skip a feed, they're gonna your milk supply will dry up in you.
And I thought, well, if I'm not pumping, I'm not going to be making enough milk for two babies. And I don't think there was ever a point where I wasn't producing enough milk to feed both of them. There
Yeah,
were probably times where I didn't pump enough because I like got some sleep.
yeah,
You know, like if I had just fed them both, I don't think there would have ever been a supply issue. And I know that's not true of everyone because, you know, everybody's different, but that fear in me of like I need to like even if James is doing bottle feeds at 3 a.m., I need to wake up to pump. Like I probably didn't need to put that much pressure on myself, you
yeah. A bit of
know.
more sleep would probably done more for your milk supply than. But I had that exact same mindset as well, you know, and
You
it
know, I
was
was eating like oats all the time because I heard oats were really good. I was just so worried about everything
yeah.
they're feeding. So that was like, what can I do to produce more?
And the latch, I mean, I can't even imagine doing it, like trying to do it two at the same time. I was just going to say it was about the latch because I had it in my head that if you didn't have like the perfect latch, you know, the chin to nipple or no
Yeah,
nose to nipple and chin tucked in, then you're
nose to
like,
nipple. Yeah.
yeah, then like it wouldn't work and your nipple would fall off and you'd never.
There was points where I did think my nipple was going to fall.
Yeah, me too.
The latch thing, I think, and you know this, and anyone who breastfed, you know, and did it for enough time, eventually it just works. But in the beginning, you do actually have to teach them. And I just assume that everyone's been breastfeeding since cavemen times and it should just be done and the baby knows what to do. I mean, this is survival. It's
Mm.
happened to all humans, but it is like you have to teach them. And if you don't have a mom or someone to teach you how to teach them, you're put in a really difficult position. Even with all the support in the world, it is a lot of like, you can do this or you could do this. And I think the reason I benefited from the tongue tie one was because she was like, no, do this. And was a little bit more like a forceful mom would be, you know, like, no, do this, do this, do this. And then all of a sudden it just worked. And I remember getting home and crying that night because I was like, we've got this, blah, blah. And then we tried it again and it just did not work at all like it did with her there. And I was just like, oh my God, it's never going to happen. I breastfed them for almost 2 years. So it eventually clicked and worked out. So my advice is stick with it. If it's something that's important to you, stick with it, even through those shitty nights of stress and crying.
Yeah.
Don't torture your baby and don't torture yourself.
Yeah.
But come back to it because, like you said, your milk supply is not going to dry up because you gave him a bottle for one of the feeds or
Yeah.
two of the feeds.
Mm-hmm. And not to feel guilty as well. Like I think I had this. I feel like your brain just shifts when you've just had a baby, and I think I would have felt like a massive sense of failure. Which you know, when I'm not in that mindset now, I'm like, well, why on earth did I feel like that? You
Yeah.
know? So I mean, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I believe in stead is best. You know, in whatever way that is. Oh, could we talk a little bit about mum guilt? Because I feel like I just feel guilty all the time. I felt guilty nonstop since having a
Yeah.
baby.
Yeah. Well, I think I won't say a breakdown, but I definitely had some like pivotal moment around this. And it was attached to the feeding as well. So it was like Francesca was a bit of a better eater or drinker, sorry, feeder with when we're talking about milk. And, you know, like I feel guilty if one of them fed for longer than the other, or if like Francesca had more bottles, or like basically everything made me feel guilty because you have two, and anyone with two kids must feel this way too, even if they're not twins, right? Because like you have this attention with one or time with one, and are you making it even, or are you or are you going down the route of like, well, life's not fair, not everything can be even, and you have this like systematic approach to parenthood of am I doing the right thing? With back then, I think I had this moment of, well, they didn't ask for this and they're having to share me, and like share me at the earliest stages, and it's just not fair to them. And I think like I kind of went through, well, everybody gets this newborn stage where it's like mom and baby and they're connected and they're together all the time, and you don't have to choose between, well, who's worse off right now. Like I've got one crying in the cot upstairs, but then I've got one crying down here and I'm down here, so do I go to this one or do I go to that one? And then the one that's waiting, like I would just always feel guilty. Or, and I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you've got two crying babies in the moment, you're just like, you feel awful. So that's why with the tandem feeding, it helped me kind of get through that, because I felt like I was able to like physically meet their needs at the same time and not have to pick and choose who got breastfed, who got bottle fed, who I needed help with, who I didn't, because I was just able to help them both. But then when you like fast forward a few years and you're playing or talking, or like there's that time when I think it's like 1.5 where they're toddling and learning to walk and walking, but they're just falling and getting hurt all the time. And, that was really tough to have two kids on one, because they just need help all the time.
Yeah.
So then it was that guilt of, oh my God, someone's got hurt because I was with the other one. Or like, not like neglect is a harsh word, but you in that moment think like, yeah, I am neglecting the other one if I'm spending too much time. But it was like, now I just think I love them both. They both do get equal attention, even if it's not in the same ways, or like quality time to each of them is a little bit different now because they've got different personalities, different likes. We try to do things like mommy day, daddy day, where it's, daddy has them both, mommy has them both. But then we really tried, this is so rare now with work schedules and life, but we really try to do where we get one-on-one time with them, even if it's I'm taking Holly to Tesco and James is home with Frankie in the garden, or he's going to the pub. The girls love Baby Chino's pub, cafe, and like coloring, and they just love to chit chat. They're like my little best friends, just like me. They just like to chat and socialize. So we'll do these little like dates with them, and as long as I feel like it's quality time, like if I'm the one staying home, let's say I'm painting with them, or we're playing in the garden, or we're doing something slightly special that is harder to do with two, like so much easier to bake with one toddler than two toddlers. It's just like two toddlers, it is a disaster. One toddler, you can kind of at least control the flowers on this half of the kitchen, not the entire kitchen. So just trying to make those special moments helps me feel less guilt.
I mean, and you're 3.5 years in now, and looking back on when they were younger and you said you had to choose, and this feeling of like, oh, you were neglecting one. I know the answer to this, but do you think there's been any repercussions? Do you see them now that you're 3.5 years in? Do you think they're clingier than, did you see any impact from how you had to do things?
I think I would say no, because I don't think, luckily I have two healthy children that are pretty okay. They're lovely kids. We don't have any health issues, thank God, and we don't have any like real worries right now. They have a sibling, right? They fight for attention. They fight for like physical attention too, like not even just like, oh, I want to play with mommy. It's like, I want to cuddle on you. And like right now, the most recent thing is pushing the other one off me. And like, absolutely not. This is your sister. This is your best friend. And you are both my girls. So like I always say, two knees for two girls, and they like know that one sits on this side, one sits on that side. And again, I don't want them to always feel like they have to share me. And I wish I could have a little bit more one-on-one attention with them. But I don't think like, if anything, they have to share me, but they also have a built-in best friend. So they've got another person, luckily, that like also gives them attention. They get attention from each other, which is lovely if you think about it.
Yeah, 100%. They've got a little pal to play around with, and they actually get on. I mean, I know they fight, they snatching toys off each other, as of course all kids' siblings do, but a lot of the time they play really nicely and they love chatting to each other and playing games and things. So Yeah, and
Yeah.
hopefully,
At
they'll always have each other and have that bond because
yeah. At dance last week, they said they usually do this dance a line, they all go take turns and go down the line. And I guess they changed it up last week where they went in pairs. And I said, "Oh, well, who did you hold hands with?" She was like, "Holly, of course."
oh,
And I said, "Well, you can make a new friend." Now I have Holly. And then okay, their mom guilt of like, oh my God, when they go to reception, I need to split them up so they start making friends and they don't just rely on each other. And it's like new worry unlocked.
yeah.
And then James and I have talked about this a million times of do you separate them if you have a two form school? And again, teachers don't give you advice. They say it's completely up to you. And I get why, because every family is different and every kid is different. And I think ultimately, I think the girls will be good whichever situation we pick. So I'm again trying to remove that like pressure of the decision itself. Like I think it could be interesting to split them up because they're with each other at home, they're with each other on the walk to school, back to school. Like it'll give them something to talk to each other about and the opportunity to make new friends. But I also think if they wind up in at this point we don't know which school they're going to. If they wind up in a school with only one class, I don't think they cling to each other to the point of like it being detrimental. I think they would just go off and play separately and make their own friends, but then they'd also still have each other if I don't know, if they needed each other, let's say. I don't have any answers on what you should do in that situation because we're going through it right now and I don't know what I'm doing.
It'd be interesting if there's any twin mums who are listening to this who've got older twins and they've got a comment for Ali or for anyone else listening. If anyone has any thoughts on that about how it worked out for them. But sometimes I see I see things in a podcast and I want to caveat it when I'm like moaning, complaining about something being hard. And I say like, I want to say something like, oh, but there's obviously people out there doing it with twins, with triplets, or being a single parent. And I sometimes but I want it to be like I acknowledge. I don't want it to be like a pity thing, but I want it to be like I can appreciate that what you are doing is harder. Because I think you sometimes feel like, oh, I don't want to say that like I have it harder with twins. I'm like, but you do have it harder with twins. You have two. Two is harder. Two is harder.
Yeah. I do find that when people it's like a small talk thing. Is it harder with twins? And then you feel you have to be humble and go, oh, no, it's the only thing I've known. So, it is true. It is the only thing I've known. I don't know what it's like to have one baby. But I do remember things, and you were there for some of it, where like going swimming and only having one baby in that moment. Because I used to, for people who don't know this, when I would take them swimming, what I found really a lot easier was because I only took one, I signed up one of the girls for swimming and just would swap them every week because at 20 weeks old, I'm sorry, but they weren't like taking away breaststroke from this class. So I just took Holly one week and took Frankie the next week and swap. But when we would go get them dressed afterwards, it was the most traumatic thing ever in the world, trying to get a really wet, cold baby dressed in winter after swimming. But when I only had one in that moment, I realized like, oh, not that this is easy because it was like the hardest task to get that wet baby happy, fed, and into the cafe after swimming. But I was like, but this is just one. I mean, you used to joke with me like, you're so fast. It was like, well, because usually I'd have to get two changed, and I'm so used to just being as fast as possible.
Yeah, Ali would be out in the cafe sipping her cappuccino by the time I came through with my one.
Like bags under my eyes and like soaking wet under all my clothes, but the baby was happy.
Yeah, Ali was still in her swimming costume. Did you tell the swimming instructor that you had twins, or did you just pretend it was like one baby? Because obviously they don't look different when they're that.
It was the same baby.
Yeah, okay. I'm sure they wouldn't have cared, but because
the teaching instructor was like 18 and like had no clue. Like she would never be able to tell the difference between two newborn babies, and I just thought, I would never be able to handle two, so why pay and sign two up? I'm really lucky that my mother-in-law lives really close, and she was able to, on the days where James was working, I would just walk to her house, drop one off, and then walk to the swimming bath. And that worked out really well because I got the one-on-one time, so I felt a little bit less guilty on those, having that trade-off. And I don't know, both of us were adamant that we needed the kids to be in swim at that age. And now looking back, that's hysterical. There's benefits, but I wouldn't have put so much pressure on myself to do that.
We did it in midwinter as well. I talk about this in like my baby class. We started these classes in midwinter and it was freezing cold in the changing rooms. I'm sure there was one time when we were in adjoining changing rooms and I was crying and I'm pretty sure I could just hear you crying as well. It was like the baby screamed
Yeah.
and was blue and we
Yeah.
were, I don't know why we did it. And do you have any top tips or anything you want to end with or any words of advice for anyone who's listening?
It's so hard because when people ask me, do you have advice for others? I think, well, what was the best advice I received? And my father-in-law said something to me at my baby shower that has stuck with me forever. And he said, like, right now, you can't imagine what these babies will be like. You can't imagine their personalities or what they're like. And that's all you spend time is like imagining what they're going to be like. And he goes, and then they're born. And then you get to know them. And he said, but you'll get to this point where you could never imagine what your life would be like without them. You just can't imagine it. And when he said that to me, I was like, oh, wow. But then I didn't really get it until I became a mom. And now looking at it, like that whole question of, did I ever neglect anyone? Or did I ever did the mom guilt actually warrant anything? And it's like, well, I just can't imagine my life any other way than having these two girls. So I just have to think that everything I did was probably okay. And everything I'm going to do, we all make mistakes and learn from them and scream or make a bad decision here and there. But ultimately, like, this is the best version of my life and those decisions will be fine. So it's not even really about twins, but it's just about like being a parent in general is like, I could never imagine my life without them. And it's such a nice sentiment that like I've got these two little best friends now. And yeah, I think, I don't know, I'm trying to think of any other advice, but
Well, I think that's nice because I feel like you're just saying, like, yeah, it's hard, but it's worthwhile. You know what I mean? Like,
oh God, yeah,
yeah, you know what I
yeah.
mean? It's really hard and you feel like you could just chuck everyone out the window. You still like wouldn't change it, for anything. And,
Yeah,
so
I've gotten that like overwhelming touched out feeling, probably more because I have two. But then you also get that like you're covered in puppies feeling a lot
yeah.
more. Like, you know, bedtime double is sweet because I get
Mhm.
two girls telling me they love me and kissing me goodnight. And when they are sick and they need mommy, it's like we're all snuggled up together. Like it's just there's like as much as there is hard, there's double the love. So
Mm.
we were talking about people giving you crappy one-off comments in shops and stuff, and they'll be like double trouble, and like James would always say like double the love, and
Oh,
like it's a corny, tacky thing, but it's also like it is true. You know,
yeah.
it is like double the fun.
I think that would be really reassuring to hear. If I was pregnant with twins and I was listening to this, I would be thinking, okay, that's nice. There's good
Yeah.
to it. I will end there then, if that's all right. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for talking to us. I hope this is really helpful to
I mean, there's
anyone.
nothing anyone loves more than talking about their kids.
Yeah, exactly.
So this has been great.
That's why I started the podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for listening. If anyone has any comments or would like to ask Ali any questions, I'm sure she'd be happy to post them on wherever platform you're listening. And if you haven't already, it would be amazing if you would go and follow 10,000 Steps of Baby on Instagram and Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Thanks again, Ali.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.